What's good, Game On Wisconsin? Welcome to a bonus episode of Coast to Coast Packers. It couldn't have come at a better time, I think. We were gone last week. I was out in California getting some sunshine. Umar, I know you were on vacation, but as well, man. How you doing today, dude?
Hey, man. Well, I'm happy, man. I'm back. I came back from Hilton Head, South Carolina. Had a great time with the family, and we had so much that went down in the last week. I am so mad that we took off Monday, but we needed the break. And man, I can't wait to get into it. So many great just moments this week alone.
Absolutely, and so for us to discuss that, right? We were talking about how should we cover training camp, and then the wonderful thing about social media is going out there and finding other content creators that maybe have a different perspective, a different view from you, or maybe they are living in Green Bay and have access to training camp where, as you know, as our listeners know, Umar and I are nowhere near Green Bay. But our guest today, Jordan Spear, a content creator, his podcast is called Packers on the Rocks. Great to have you here, Jordan. I know you've been in training camp, and I don't have anything on the rocks though, but I have my cold one here, my favorite cold cannabis drink, and so cheers to you, Jordan. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, cheers, guys. First and foremost, Bernie, Amar, appreciate you having me on. The love and support that you've shown for other content creators here so far. I would say there's a lot of us out here, and some can view it as competition, but love the approach that you're taking, more of a synergistic side of it. I would say there's more than enough fans to be able to go around and who share the same love and passion as the team. And above all else, I mean, I'm excited to USA teams men basketball and their win today and all that. Unless I'm on the wrong podcast, so we're not talking about Team USA and France.
Oh no, we can definitely.
I might be at the wrong spot.
Oh no, dude! I was actually yesterday when I watched USA Soccer crush the Kiwis, and then I watched Canada versus my boy, the Greek Freak. That basketball game was fantastic too. And I thought to myself, it was literally a few Olympics ago where I was like, why am I watching this bullshit? It was like a year USA didn't even qualify for soccer. USA, I don't think, like, they took like third in basketball or something, or maybe they didn't medal. It was a couple bad years there where I was like, man, Olympics sucks now. But this year, I'm there with you, Jordan. I've been stoked. Simone Biles, former Mrs. Packers, former Mrs. Green Bay Packer. She's back competing, and she's always a great athlete to cheer for. But I'm there, USA all the way, man.
Yeah. And she looked good yesterday too. And while it's not going to be a cakewalk for men's basketball, they did have a convincing win today. Saw LeBron pickpocket the Joker, bring it back. I mean, it's crazy to believe he's 40 years old and the best player on the team. But I know we're not. That's on serious now. That's not what we're here to talk about today. But I do have blue on, which is about the NFL draft. Mark Murphy's like, hey, if you're going to be walking around the flats, you got to promote it. I know we're 300 days out plus, but it's going to be here before you know it. I'm kidding. Mark did not say that, but
he's going to take all the free publicity he can get right now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's his last year before he's done so, and then Ed Policy comes in. So the fact that he acquired the draft, I know me and Bernie are definitely trying to come up there for the draft, and man, just partake in all those activities. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, which, by the way, I'll be renting out our yoga studio down below on the first floor for $5,000 per night as like an Airbnb type setup, that Fire Festival, if you think of that. So it's what comes included is a cot, complimentary blanket, along with complimentary Woodson whiskey too. So
say less. Woodson whiskey, let's go.
some pretty great amenities. I'm kidding. No, I'd be kicked out. Tileton flat quicker than you could say go Pack go if I did that. So hopefully none of my flatmates are out and listening at this moment.
Oh man, I started thinking about like, oh man, I'll just stock up on Quick Trip goodies. I'll just live off of Quick Trip food the whole time.
Heck yeah, man.
I got a cousin that lives about 30 minutes from Green Bay, and he's actually one of our regular listeners. And when he heard me talking about the draft and coming up there, he's just like, "Hey, man, you can just crash with me." And so
Dude,
he's
that's
like
awesome.
30 minutes south of Green Bay. And so, you know what? A free place to crash, 30 minutes. That ain't shit to drive. You know,
No.
this is what I'm going to do. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I've already told the missus, like, hey, if you need me to hire an extra nanny or something while I'm gone that week, I'm willing to do it because it kind of feels like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It is. And I only have one quick question for you guys because I've been pondering it for so long. So the Detroit Lions hosted the draft, as we all know, this past one. And as a part of like the entrance to kick off the draft, they had Eminem, they had Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, and then our beloved Roger Goodell as the commish. Like what I've been pondering this whole time is I'm like, who are the Packers going to have out there to kick it off? Is it Lil Wayne? Is it Brett Favre? Is it somebody else? Like we need to make a grand entrance for this thing and send out the big guns, even though a lot of the Lombardi Packers are, unfortunately gone at this time.
Man. Is Kramer still around? Or no, did Kramer pass? No, Kramer's still around, right?
Yep, in a wheelchair. And he was there for the season opener last year. So yeah, he's still there.
So I would say Kramer, Lil Wayne, and
Anthony Davis. I know he's a Packer fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see Anthony Davis. Yeah.
You got to bring out the Magic Man, dude. Right?
Yeah.
If Magic Man doesn't get injured, do we have this 32-year streak of franchise quarterbacks?
I don't know, man. I think maybe because Ron Wolf gave up a lot to get Favre that year, right? He gave up a first that year, and I think a first the following year, right? He gave up like 2 firsts, which was insane for a third-string quarterback out of Southern Miss, right? But I think even if Magic Man doesn't get hurt, they're finding a way to push him out or have a true competition, right? But you're right though. Magic Man's his health has been kind of failing too. His daughter's been posting a lot of things about him, and if he can make it to a draft, it'd be awesome to have him there too.
Yeah. So we shouldn't do like a start bench cut and include Magic Man in there because Bernie's gonna have Magic Man starting all day.
Probably.
Hey man, I got the hair. I'll just throw on the Magic Man uni and I'll show up and I can be a faux Magic Man. That's that's the best I got. We also there's Cary Elwes. He's the main character from The Princess Bride. You remember that movie, Princess Bride?
Oh, yeah.
As you wish.
Yes. Apparently he's a big time Packers fan as well. But I don't think he has that big of a pull. I don't think he's as recognizable anymore. But yeah, the big question is who do we kick that shindig off with?
I don't know. I can't wait. That's all I know. I am ready for the draft. I'm ready for this season to start. Last year's draft was crazy. This year's draft, what we did, and now just imagining. Hey, it doesn't matter because we're gonna be picking 32nd anyways, right? So it don't matter what happens, but we're gonna be winning the Super Bowl this year. That's my optimistic perspective on this season.
Yeah. So let's get into the show because we brought the topics. And
yes.
This is the one we have to kick off, right? Like this is the most relevant news right now, and it is huge. Let's just talk about our initial reactions when we saw that. We'll start with you, Jordan. I want to hear maybe where you were or what your reaction was when you saw that hit the news.
Yeah, I mean, my dad will appreciate this, even though he doesn't know how to access YouTube, Twitter. He doesn't even know what any of those are, but he'll appreciate this because I was on the phone with him, giving my boots on the ground, sideline reporter, kind of update throughout the day. And I was on the phone with him at like 7 o'clock. And I would say he's pretty long-winded. So while I'm talking to him, I usually end up pulling up social media at the same time while he's going through one of the stories. And sure enough, did a refresh on Facebook. And then here's Adam Schefter with, the Packers announced that they've signed Jordan Love to a 4-year, $220 million contract. And I mean, first and foremost, I'm extremely happy for him. Just the kind of person that he is. Matt LaFleur's talked about it really. at length, and it was kind of funny because the other day he's like, if Jordan ever changes his way, he's like, he's one of those guys. He's like, I might call up his mom and say that he's a different type of man now. But everything that he's experienced in his life, between his dad passing and not really having a first off season, and really the type of QB that he's come, even dealing with the highs and lows of that first season as a starter. And he couldn't have cashed in at a better time with Tua's contract and that Goff's and everything else that's going on around in the NFL. So I'd have to say, like, my gut reaction is I'm extremely happy for him. And I understand why he did the lock-in at practice. You got to protect your livelihood. There was a Packers fan who brought up at camp on Saturday how Teddy Bridgewater was in a similar position many moons ago, and he blew out his knee. I mean, it was a pretty catastrophic injury. Yep. And for that injury, he cost himself millions to the point where, I know this is a joke, but last year for the Lions, he's wearing like a number 90-something or 60-something going out there as a quarterback. And he's, made a handsome amount of money, but like, yeah, I mean, I'm just approaching more so as like, I'm extremely appreciative and thankful for what Jay Love has done and how he's carried the G.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's just an absolute, I don't even know how to even put it into words. Amr and I have talked about it before, about how we've seen the rise and fall of 4-12, and how with Love's demeanor and personality, we just don't see that with him going from hero to villain, right? There's that saying, you either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. I just don't see that in Love's story arc. So, Amr, what about you, man? Where were you? What were you up to when that news hit us?
So it's funny, like, I have two reactions. So when Kenny Clark got his contract, right, I was kind of fretting a little bit, and this is like in the beginning of the week, and I was in Publix in Hilton Head, South Carolina, getting groceries for for our room, and I'm literally in line. I see the contract, I see it, Ian Rappaport and a Sleeper was the other one. They're really amazing about getting the stuff out like right away. So I'm literally in the line, like, yes, like screaming, and people are like, what is wrong with this dude, right? That was Clark. And then when Love happened, I started following this guy, Pretty Ricky, on social media, on Twitter. Okay, this guy must be an agent or something, because he has the inside track on everything when it comes to players' contracts, where they're going to end up, things like that. And he'd been saying, like, he literally was saying on, what was it, Friday, he was like, hey, not to be cheesy or flippant, but it's going to be a good Friday. And so I knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. And I literally, we just drove back from Hilton Head, 10-hour drive, just pain in the butt. And I'm at my in-laws pick up the dogs. And as I'm driving over there, boom, I get the Sleeper notification, Jordan Love. And I, honestly, for me, I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about the contract. I just wanted it done. And I think you nailed it. Like, I was fighting for him. Like, I went off on Kyle, what's his name? Kyle Busch or whatever his name is, on he's on Game On Wisconsin. Nah, he's on 930 or 927 Milwaukee with like the ESPN crew, right? And he was
I know
Jordan,
what you're about.
You know what I'm talking about, right? And
yeah,
he was talking about Jordan being selfish, and I was very offended by that, because I was like, there's a lot of things that people are. Jordan's a lot of things. He's a good leader. He's very empathetic. He's very laid back. He's consistent when it comes to his approach towards things. But one thing he is not is selfish. And I think, like, we saw that. I was a big Rodgers guy, don't get me wrong, but definitely in his last couple of years, you saw some of that selfish tendencies. Jordan's not selfish. Like, he's literally at 1265, basically partaking in everything minus practicing, and he needs to be concerned about his livelihood. And your Teddy Bridgewater comp is exactly right. I mean, Mekhi Blackmon tore his ACL at Vikings practice, cornerback for the Vikings, right? I was like, that could have been Jordan. I'm just saying, like, he needed to take care of himself, because at the end of the day, you only have to look out for yourself when it comes to the money that you're going to get, because you tear your ACL, you blow out an Achilles, who knows if you come back from that, right? So I was all for it. I was happy as hell, and I was happy that it got done before the first pattern. I'm just happy it got done, because I just got all week of just hearing all the vitriol of, like, the hate that he was getting. I was just tired of it, and I'm just happy. Like I said, Jordan, what you said too, Bernie, I love, because, like, the whole, like, Batman Dark Knight, right? Like, about becoming the villain and stuff like that. I don't see that with Jordan. Like, I think Jordan he's made of the right stuff, and his upbringing, just everything about his life. I mean, losing his father at a young age due to, like, suicide, and then just having to really he didn't come from a very wealthy family. He wasn't entitled by any means. He just had to earn everything he got. And I don't see him going and getting paid and that changing who he is. And a lot of the players that have talked about it, David Bakhtiari and other people have said the same thing too. So yeah, no, I think if anything, it might add more pressure to him, if you know what I'm saying, right? He's now feels like he has to try harder now to justify the contract. And I hope he doesn't do that, because it's dude, just do what you've been doing. That's it. You were amazing in that game. You were amazing in the last 10 games this season. Yeah, you had a really bad throw, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't be in that position if it wasn't for you. So yeah, I was hyped, man. I was happy. It's done. And I can't wait. And the money to me, I think it some people put out some Ross Ogum put out a podcast on Pack a Day, kind of really hating on the contract. I felt like it. And in 2 years, the cap is expected to hit $300 million. This is going to be nothing. This is going to be literally less than 20% of our cap. So I'm not really worried about him getting paid 50, 60 million, whatever it is, because in 2 years, it's going to be a drop in the bucket in comparison to A, where everybody else is going to be getting, and B, what the cap is.
Absolutely, and that's been the proof in the pudding with all these big contracts in the last few years. Is the way that it plays out it's not that big of a deal, right? How long will he be the highest paid NFL player? Right, that's the conversation we should be having. Is, well, how long is he going to be the highest paid player? Yeah. Probably not even this season. There's going to be somebody else within the next 12 months that's going to sign for a bigger deal. True North Packers fan here in the chat. I thought there was a chance the Packers would give Jordan a 10-year deal, but that would be risky. I was talking about that where I was like, I would accept it, but yeah, that is risky, because isn't that what the Chiefs gave Mahomes, was a 10-year deal?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. 10-year, $450 million. And to that point too, where it's he's the highest paid as of today until the next franchise quarterback is up. Pat Mahomes, 10 years, $450 million, 45 per year. By the way, don't let the glasses fool you. I'm not a mathematician or a huge numbers guy like Russ Ball. That's $45 million per year, and it's only been a matter of 4 years, and now we're at 55. And one thing I want to mention too, which I think might be a lesser known kind of take, is everybody was so up in arms last year about seeing Taylor Swift and the TV panning to her. She indirectly made a pretty big impact on the NFL and new viewership. And I think that she is a little bit of part of the salary cap increase. And
100%.
Maybe we need to continue to root for the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift relationship and all these international games. And I don't know about expanding to 18 games, but I'm everybody's making such a big deal about Taylor Swift. And we got commercials every 3 minutes of football. And I'm they barely even show her in its totality.
I feel you there. There was a game that she was at, we were watching, and my wife was like, I'm gonna count how many times they show her. My wife's a Swiftie, and it was only a few times, and she's like, oh, I really thought it was gonna be a lot more than that. And I was just like, to be honest, I thought so too. But it's like you said, Jordan, it's bringing in millions of more viewers to get 30 seconds of screen time of Taylor, which seems ridiculous. But like you said, it's going to expand the game. The part I'm most excited for, though, is the 18 games. And if they go 18 games, I also think they need to make the roster number 55 rather than 53. I think by adding these extra 2 games in the last decade or whatever it will be when they add that 18th game, I think you need a couple extra bodies out there. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why, right, the salary cap would go up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys were 100% right. Taylor Swift's impact on the NFL was just monumental, right? We don't get the TV deals and the cap that we have right now without her influence. Literally just being at a game, and like they said, literally less than 30 seconds, and the amount of Swifties that would watch NFL football just to get a glimpse of her. Hey, sign me up. I'm not a Swiftie by any means. I don't listen to Taylor Swift stuff, but I'm all for her contribution to the NFL. And I think she's an awesome person too. I don't listen to her music, but just all the stuff that she does outside of her music, she's a really good person too. And hey, as long as her and Travis can stay together, that's better for us. That means we're gonna keep getting money. And guess what? That means the cap going to keep going up, and then we're going to be able to keep all our players. I'm not complaining.
The the funny thing is that one of the things I got a kick out of the more that kind of like she showed up in games was just the crazy reactions to some of the NFL fans, just the tantrums they were throwing about it. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm amused by people throwing tantrums, especially when it's grown men and it's over really silly things. It's like whether you like her or not, right? She had an impact on the game. They show her 3 to 5 times during a game, and it's usually cheering for, if Kelsey makes a big catch or a touchdown, that's what they show.
Yep.
But speaking of Love, right? So Love is a 4-year deal, but he's already was signed for this year. So it's like we have 5 more years of Love for sure.
Yeah.
What are some things I'm gonna kick it your way, Jordan? What are some things you think we'll see from this in this next 5 years in the era of Love? Whether those are like individual accomplishments, team accomplishments, record setting, moments. However you see it, what are some moments of Love we're going to see in the next 5 years?
Yeah, and Amar, you kind of alluded to this here a little bit ago about increased expectations with this contract and added pressure to it. LaFleur brought it up at his press conference before practice the other day, and it does add some pressure to Love. What I am extremely hopeful, though, of Love, and you take a look at that last 8 games in the latter part of the season, is still what I ask from this Packers offense out of Love and LaFleur is don't do too much. Don't become, too much like, I want to say like Aaron and becoming off schedule and trying to play Superman. But I'm like, look what got you that contract is playing within the floor offense, playing on time, being a facilitator, dare I say, being like Brock Purdy and a game manager. That's what I want to continue on through these next few years. We saw it with Rodgers, like the maybe first couple years, and even those MVP years within LaFleur, but then he got away from it. They're like that last season and started turning like the selfish side of it. But that's what I want for like kind of like the long-term view of it. As far as short-term wise within the next few, I think we got a Super Bowl window of like the next 2 years. It's really once those wide receivers and the draft class of like Quay and Devontae, once those are up is when kind of the salary cap train starts rolling through town, and we need to kind of reshuffle some things around. But I think our Super Bowl window is probably the next 2 seasons, if not 3. And if I'd have to say as of right now, I think we could make a deep playoff run this year, but I think it's more so next year that we cash in and we're going to be hoisting that Lombardi, or at least in that game.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm saying. What about you, Amar? What are some things we can expect in the next 5 years of Love?
I think when he came back to practice yesterday, he was a little rusty. And then once he hit that 2-minute, you saw the Jordan Love that we have expected to see. And it's crazy because he did say going after what happened in that Niners game, he was really going to emphasize on 2-minute work because he felt like, he let the team down on that play, right? And I think Jordan's 100% right. I feel like the window is about a 3-year window. If you look at the way the contract was broken down, like the real big money doesn't really hit until like year 3 and 4. So I feel like you have that window in the next 3 years, right? And again, Jordan nailed it too with the receivers coming up and that draft class that had Quay, Devontae Wyatt, but of course had Zach Tom. Zach Tom is going to be a real big expenditure where you don't know. I mean, we don't even really know where he's going to end up, if we're honest, right? Like Josh Myers is probably on his last year with us. So Elton's getting a lot of work at center. He can play literally any position on the line, right? But like, truth be told, like he has like contract like initiatives, like basically if he plays so many snaps at left tackle, he gets like a lot of bonuses. I don't think they're going to put him out there again. But yeah, I just feel like I'm expecting to see the offense take a jump here, and again, play within scheme, don't get cute. Everything Jordan said, Jordan nailed it. And also I'm expecting like true North Packer fan. Anyone that follows me on Twitter knows that I was a biggest Joe Barry hater. I was hated. The second he even came into the interview conversation, I was over it. Like I didn't want anything to do with him. And so now that we got Hafley and just seeing how this defense has been really just, I know it's training camp. I know it's just, practice, but man, like there's something about the energy on that side that we have not seen in like 4 years. And I am just so excited. And like Jordan came in, he played really well. But today in practice, guess what? And Jordan here could tell me that too, where like the defense won again, and like there's something about this defense with Hafley being there, with the new coaching staff. There's a new energy, a new vibe, and just seeing how Jair. I just see clips, right? But just seeing the way he's so engaged and he's so energized. I mean, you were there last year, right, Jordan? Like when you came to training camp, how is the difference of energy between Jair last year and Jair this year, just in training camp, because he wasn't there for the OTAs, right?
Yeah, he's definitely a little bit more involved. I mean, it's like any kid in the bleachers, shouts out Ja Money, Jair, like he's acknowledging them. Like he was like one of the first players that, like, when they walked in after riding the bikes, that he did his sword celebration that got the fans going, and I think that kind of did like the first soft launch to training camp before Jay Love signed his deal, and I think that's really when training camp started. But yeah, he's totally bought in. I mean, the one sort of like biggest takeaway with the defense so far is just how quickly they're getting upfield, collapsing the pocket. I mean, after like day 3, I was literally thinking, I'm like, someone either needs to give Rashawn Gary like a veteran rest day, or tell him to tone it down a couple of decibels, because he is wrecking practice and not even letting our offense get through any reads or play calls. Like I think someone said Jaden Reed was at his locker and he's like, as soon as I turned around, like Rashawn Gary's already in Clifford's lap. And I'm like, geez, this offensive line has given our quarterbacks, whether it's Love or Clifford, no time of day. But yeah, the newfound energy with Hafley, like it's definitely present at practice. And yeah, it's pretty vocal. Rashawn Gary's even been in like the offensive line's ear, which giving them tough love. And I really appreciate that, because it reminds me of Mike Daniels and how much of a vocal leader he was with like the WWE championship belt that he had, and back and forth between him and David Bakhtiari. There's a lot of monotony in training camp and going up against the same guys. So you need something to sort of keep that competitive edge going. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you too. After probably about, 1 year of Joe B, and I mean, we don't have to discuss playing 12 yards off or Preston playing slot, but yeah, I was definitely all in favor of Hafley, or at least somebody different that plays aggressive style.
Yeah, me and Bernie talked about it. We wanted the Baltimore guys, like we wanted somebody from Baltimore, and then Hafley came, and I was pissed. I'm like, who is this dude? Is it another Nepo hire? What are we doing? Then I calmed the hell down. I listened to all his interviews, and then I found out that he was more of a solid guy than he was a LaFleur guy. And I was like, all right, I'll shut up. I was like, I'm gonna give it a chance. And then he did his press conference, and I thought I was like in the locker room of Florida when Tim Tebow was quarterback, and he was talking about that, he's gonna die for this team. Or like whatever he said, I was all for. I was like, man, I'll run through a wall for you. And I hate Florida. Yeah, I was like, I hate Florida. I was like, I'll run through a wall for you too, dog. And I'm ready to go. I'm like, I've been done with Bernie, man. I can't wait for week 1. I am ready for week 1.
So let's officially open the conversation. That was a great segue from going from Love contract and getting into the team there about training camp. And let's stay on that defensive side. So Jordan, you've been there all week, right? All the training camp practices that were open to the public. What are some things that stood out to you in this defense? So you already kind of shared some things about Ja there, but what are some other things that maybe stood out to you this week?
Yeah, I brought my sleeping bag over there on Friday night to camp outside the Ray Nitschke field, which, I mean, I'll give it, a bit of a toast. And I mean, it's not like it's a surprise, but, Packer faithful, they show out. And I knew as soon as the J Love deal was done, that was probably like the second thing that came to mind. I told my dad, I'm like, well, it looks like I better wake up at 7 a.m. and get over there at about, a little bit before 9 a.m. And sure enough, get over there on Saturday, and there's already like 200 plus people lined up outside of the bleachers waiting to get in. But yes, as far as like the defense goes specifically, I mean, a couple things that have like caught my eye is like the safety rotation. Now I know LaFleur loves to rotate guys, and he's going to give a look to Evan Williams and to Anthony Johnson Jr. But I'd have to say, like, those two have risen to the occasion. Anthony Johnson Jr. has a couple interceptions. Evan Williams had his 3rd interception of training camp here today. So, I mean, they're going to give everything that Javon Bullard can handle. But I think he's one of the biggest dogs on the team and truest competitors Javon Bullard is. And he responded in a big way on Saturday. All the talk was about Love, but he had himself a hell of a day. He did. He lined up in slot against Christian Watson, covered a slant route step for step with them, broke up the pass, looked like a Jair type coverage, just how well he played it and like the footwork of it. And then he had a pick six against Clifford where he jumped a route and there was nobody near him, nothing but green grass. And last but not least, the physicality side of his game too, where there was a bit of a check down to the flats to tight end. He was either Musgrave or Ben Sims, and he came over and laid the wood on him and knocked him clear off his feet and right on his ass, which I think it was clean. It wasn't a dirty play, but yeah, so far it's been the safety play, the rotation at it, and it kind of brings up, someone else had mentioned this on social media a while ago. They're rotating safeties, but they're not rotating Stokes and Valentine at that cornerback one spot opposite of Jair.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm liking to hear what you're saying at the safety position. It sounds like it's going to be Xavier McKinney will be out there every snap, but it sounds like maybe that other safety position might be rotating kind of like last year. Do you have a favorite? Do you think that who will get the most snaps at safety outside of McKinney, you think?
Yeah, unless like Evan Williams clearly jumps off the page in preseason and like has, 2 or 3 interceptions, I think this is Javon Bullard's job to lose. I think some of it's like a formality, but unless like he really makes a ton of rookie mistakes, I don't think heading into week 1 that you're going to see anybody else lined up alongside X than Bullard.
Okay, right on.
That's my prediction so far. A lot of ball left though. A lot of training.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started. And Anthony Johnson Jr. is my guy. He's a guy that slid in the draft a little bit last year, and so I'm glad he's still there. He's getting some meaningful snaps, and I'm excited what he can do in year 2 under this new scheme. What about you, Amr? Is there anything defensively you've read or you're hoping to see or hear about during training camp?
I mean, my thing is defensively, I'm really liking Rashawn Gary. I feel like him being a full year removed now from his ACL recovery, that you're gonna really see a man possessed, and we're gonna see that defensive player of the year candidate come back. The battle between Stokes and Carrington Valentine are going to be, I think, is going to be the best one because both those guys deserve to start. I think Stokes, he just needed to get healthy, right? But Carrington, he's going to push hard for that position. And then seeing Kalen King with the pick 6 to end practice today, I was just like, man, that was absolutely amazing. And it's funny because like there's so many safeties that we drafted to include Anthony Johnson Jr. from last year, and like, it seems like every single one of them has like a talent that we can utilize, right? Like Bullard is just that beast who he's going to bring the wood. And he's also, he was probably one of the smartest players at Georgia based on what Kirby Smart was saying. Evan Williams, again, we had Justice Mosqueda on, and he was talking about how, he was probably the best player on the Oregon defense, which is a pretty big deal, right? And then Kitchen Oladapo, who's banged up right now, but him coming out of Oregon State, he was another really amazing football player that was on a defense that wasn't that great. And I don't know. There's so much stuff that positively I can look at. And my only negative is what we were saying before was the offensive line. We are down 2 starters. I understand that, and even almost 3 starters at times, right? But just seeing them not really be able to hold up against this defense, it reminds me of a little bit of like a couple years ago when like when Joe Barry's defense was really eating us up on offense. And then we kind of realized that it wasn't because the defense was good, it's because the fact that the offense was completely in disarray because Rodgers was doing what the hell he wanted to do. And this year, now I'm like, okay, is this a product of the fact that our defensive line is just really that good, which it could be? Or like last year where the offensive line needed time to gel before it really hit the ground running at the back end of the season with Jordan. Like, is that going to have to happen again? I'm seeing Jordan Morgan's at right guard. Honestly, I don't even care anymore. As long as he's starting and he becomes an all-pro there, I don't care where he plays. As long as he's the starting lineman and he puts out all-pro work, I'm happy. I don't care that we invested a first-round pick in a guard. That's fine by me. No complaints here, man. Like, just get that big-handed bastard out there and let's box this shit up.
Just put the best 5 out there, right? And that's that's the way they want to draft, and that's the way they want to coach these guys. And so I'm excited. I'm just glad that we added so much depth because was it last year that we didn't draft a single offensive lineman?
It was.
And it was like the first time in like, I don't know, X amount of years. Like it seemed like that we've ever done that. So to come back this year and get 3, and 2 of them should be on the roster, the active roster, on opening day, I'm all for it. And like you said, I just hope he starts somewhere and he plays at an all-pro level. It doesn't have to be this year. It doesn't have to be all-pro this year. But, those projects are tricky in the first round. And for whatever reason, Packers love projects in the first round, and then they love just like hitting the nail on the head in the second round. It's just nice to see that I think last year and this year, the third round of the draft has turned around for us as well.
Yeah, no more curse.
Yeah. And so what through training camp so far too, Jordan, what you've touched on Javon Bullard. Is there any other rookies that have stood out at all? Because I guess we talked about Kalen King's pick 6. I guess Michael Pratt. I should ask about Michael Pratt because he's my prediction for getting being QB2. What were you seeing, I guess, from Pratt and Clifford before Love came back? Because I heard it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has really taken the baton and not even ran with it, walked with it in like a positive direction. Neither of them has stood out, and it goes back to the defensive line wreaking havoc on them. And I mean, it doesn't matter who you put back there; like they're not going to have time. But the offensive line did much better today, and they gave Love. I would say there's a few different plays where he had all the time in the world back there to be able to pick apart the defense, find the open guy, and he did. Yeah, Pratt. I'd say it's too early to tell. For me, like I really gauge it upon those preseason games when they're going to get a ton of snaps. Like Clifford, I think, is a true gamer where you need to have him in live preseason games and he comes alive. He's kind of got that Brett Favre gunslinger mentality where he might throw an interception, but he's going to come back and still ready to sling it. So it's still too early to tell. I don't know if either of them have had like any like positive, like, splash plays or you're like, oh, wow, the ball really jumps off his arm. I mean, you could see the difference. I would say with a couple Love throws, you're like, oh yeah, these guys aren't even in the same stratosphere as like a Jordan Love. And one quick point too, one-on-one started today, defensive line, offensive line, and then wide receivers, cornerbacks. It happened simultaneously, so I wasn't able to watch both at the same time, but you'll love the early return on investment with Jordan Morgan because he had 2 reps against Devontae Wyatt, and he held his own both those 2 reps and stalemated him on both of them. So I think that's a good look. My only thing was, he's only getting looks at guard right now. Like, he's a tackle in college, and someone was saying that he might not be picking up the tackle spot as easily, so they're going to give him all the looks in the world at guard and have him compete with Sean Ryan and others. But, yeah, I like what I saw out of Jordan Morgan today in the one-on-ones. And Michael Pratt, I'd say it's too early to tell.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. And looking forward to this preseason, I don't think we're going to see much of Love in these preseason games. I hope a few drives and at least one of them. But Ummer, is there what do you want to see from Clifford and from Pratt in the preseason games? I'll throw this one your way.
No picks from Clifford. That man literally has been throwing pick after pick after pick. And all these damn practice, which I get it. In practice, you're trying different things, right? So it's fine. Like, you're working out the kinks. You're trying different plays. You're trying to get the ball up there. You're trying to give your playmakers opportunity. But I want to just see a true battle between Clifford and Pratt. I was watching Andy Herman's breakdown of like the 2-minute and today, and they said Pratt looked amazing. He was very diabolical in the way he was able to. Diabolical is not the right word, but he was very efficient in the way that he kind of ran the offense. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how I saw Clifford last year, so I'm almost expecting him to improve on what he did last year in the preseason. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Michael Pratt because I feel like, if you listen to like Jim Nagy, who's like he's like the founder of the Senior Bowl, and other people that are real big talent evaluators, they say that we got to steal with Pratt as well too, where he basically was a second or third round, between second and fourth round pick that we got in the 7th round. And we can somehow turn that around and make that into a draft pick or a player acquisition. I'm all for it. Or just having a competent backup because you never know. The NFL is 100% injury, right? Knock on wood. I don't wish anything on anybody, but you got to have someone that can come in place for any position. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the preseason and just seeing not only how this team gels, but really with the defense. The defense is going to be very vanilla,
But just seeing, even from a preseason perspective, 'cause I remember when Dom Capers came in and we saw him in preseason, he kind of unleashed the kitchen sink at times, and I'm kind of hoping that Hafley kind of does a little bit like that, where you just see the defense on display, and we could see a dramatic difference in what we were dealing with for the last 4 years.
Absolutely. Speaking of the preseason, when is that Hall of Fame game?
That's this Thursday.
That's this Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta get some football,
it's
man.
Coming this Thursday, and I gotta ask. Are you guys like? I know this is a rabbit hole. It's just the way my brain works. Are you gonna watch that game in hopes that you get to catch a glimpse of maybe Caleb Williams getting some snaps? Because I have to know, man. I am really curious how it's gonna go for Chicago. I don't have a lot of faith in that. So what do you think about so far about what our rival in Chicago has been doing, Jordan? Do you have any worries or thoughts about the Bears this year?
Pay no attention to it, man. I mean, I grew up in Bears country. I grew up in Illinois, and I mean, they didn't have really a leg to stand on. I mean, basically my whole entire lifetime between Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. Besides, they're like, "Oh, you guys suck." I'm like, say something objective and not opinion based. But I mean, with Caleb Williams in that offense, they look phenomenal on paper. I think it's going to come down to how their offensive line is. I mean, we've seen just how much pressure our defensive line has brought to them, and I think that's going to translate over into the regular season. So we'll see how good of a job they can do with protecting Caleb. He has some Aaron Rodgers type qualities where he can go off schedule, buy himself some time. He's got all the crazy arm angles and whatnot. But no, the Bears don't scare me. I mean, the Hall of Fame game, I'll have it on. It just kind of gives me bad memories of when I was at Brett Favre's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And there was supposed to be a preseason game. However, it was canceled because they had a whole entire year to get the painting right in the end zone. But for whatever reason, they couldn't. And they canceled the game because they were afraid of player safety and slipping in the end zone. But that shouldn't take away from Brett Favre's, amazing Hall of Fame speech and one for the ages that went like an hour or something like that. But yeah, I'll have it on in the background. I'll tune in for like the ones, and then probably about like halftime when there's some no names in there, I'll tune it off and then maybe cut on the Olympics with swimming or whatever they got going on.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I know it's gonna start on the big screen, and like you said, once the ones are out of there, usually what I'll do is I'll sometimes transition that game to like my laptop, and I'll let the wife or hey, if you want to put cartoons on for the baby or watch your show, whatever, that's fine. But it's just gonna be nice to be able to put real football on again, even though it is gonna be the Bears, but it's also a first chance to start looking at the Texans, because I think that's a game that's going to be really awesome for us this year in Lambeau, that Texans Packers game. But I guess we're kind of talking about the preseason now, and we got the game in Cleveland, then we go to Denver, and then we host the Ravens. So we just have 3 preseason games this year. I like that, only having 3 of those. But I guess we can talk about maybe position battles. What's a position battle that you're maybe enjoying right now, Jordan, or maybe it's a position battle you think gets settled during the preseason?
Here's a good one that I thought of today because of Kalen King's pick 6. He even blew up a tight end, similar to like what Javon Bullard did. And I'm almost convinced Amar's been at training camp practice. I don't know what all this BS is about. Like, I'm getting updates. I'm like, dude, sounds like you're there, man. I would say he's either got like a stream that's got like a webcam that's shooting in or whatnot, but so it's good. Yeah, an interesting one I would say is like the 5th cornerback spot. This kind of gets into like the fine details of how they're structuring the 53, but like it's that 5th cornerback spot between Kalen King and then Corey Ballantyne that started a number of games last year. I thought he did well. I think he is a above average special teams type player, but I think that is. And they're going to get a ton of snaps during preseason too. So we know about Kalen King's potential in the first, could have been a first-round pick like a year ago, but then he slid to the 7th, and thank God the Packers were able to scoop him up. So I think that's one. And the one player that, like, I just can't wait till he gets back to practice. And then in the preseason games, we can see why he was a 3rd-round draft pick is Marshawn Lloyd. He's dealing with a hip injury right now, but as soon as like we're able to get him suited up and get him some snaps, all I gotta say is watch out.
I'm excited for him. And is there a timeline of his return yet, or no idea?
Yeah. I may have met him and know, a little bit more. But yeah, met him, and I have no clue as far as when he will be returning back to practice.
Damn.
Dang. Well, Manuel Wilson's there for a reason, right? And what about you, Armor? What are some preseason, battles or some things you hope to maybe see throughout this preseason?
Oh man, I'm just looking just to see the guys in action. It's funny, Jordan. You're right. I have notifications on for almost everybody on the beat, so I see everything, and I see a lot of repeats. And I get maybe a little bit hyper obsessive when it comes to that retweet. Basically, everybody that I try not to retweet the same thing. But yeah, that's kind of like how I stay on top of just what's going on. And then there are guys like Big B and all the ones that are out there too who post stuff, right? So it's kind of like I'm like a crack addict over here when it comes to Packer updates, and so anything I can get, I'm gonna get, But when it comes to preseason, like I said, I really want to see if Stokes can hold on to a job, or if Carrington's going to beat him out, and then on top of that too, who does line up opposite of Xavier McKinney, or they plan on rotating, or even playing maybe 3 safeties, trying to get more talent onto the field, and just also where this offense is going to take the next step, where like you have to always keep evolving on all sides, all 3 ways, right? When it comes to offense, special teams, defense, right? And I really want to see like just how LaFleur is going to make his offense take the next step to where like we're not seeing repeat plays and things like that. Because there's times where I would see that LaFleur would maybe kind of go back to plays that he'd done throughout the season, right? Like the screen to throws to the receiver, and the receiver throws it back to Aaron Jones, and then he ran that play like 3 times, and then also the play where like fake left, fake right, and throw it to a tight end across the middle. I understand kind of going back in your bag and using some of my work previously, right? But sometimes I'm like, I don't recall seeing that type of redundancy on other very successful high functioning offenses, right? Like I know there's bread and butter plays, but I want to see just more creativity maybe. Now let me preface this by I am no Dusty Everly. Dusty Everly literally breaks down everything when it comes to these plays. So he would be the man that will tell me, hey, Armor, you're wrong. Here's the reason why. He is very creative. And I will be stand corrected, right? I just want to see where the offense goes. And honestly, I need to see the special teams be an above average special teams. I am just sick and tired of I love Rich Bisaccia. I love his attitude. I love all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about the product you put on the field. I know a true North Packer fan knows how much I love Anders Carlson, and I'm already pissed off that I'm seeing Jake Bates kicking freaking field goals in Detroit and making 50 yards with like basically like a 30-yarder, right? And it's annoying, but I want to see our special teams take a step. And they were basically one of the worst special teams last year. And you're paying Rich Bisaccia the most money out of any assistant in the NFL, and he has not backed it up based on play. And I gotta also give Bernie. I'm sorry, man. They cut our boy Peter. And
I know, man. Dude, that bummed me out so bad.
I was so mad because Bernie had me hyped up on this dude. And I was hyped up too. And I'm hoping that they bring him back because I'm not sold on Osrich or whatever his name is, a long snapper. I feel like Carlson's a lot of his issues did have to do with the snap and the way it was coming back to him. And the holder, I think, had it, but I think it's just the way it's getting snapped to him. And hey, man, that kid out of Wisconsin, man, he was a beast. And I wanted to bring him back and hopefully to give him a shot because I hope it wasn't a contract thing where we paid Ostrich or whatever all that money. So we're trying to see if we can get our money's worth. My thing is at the end of the day, and if I know like sometimes you like make a pick or sign a player and you're kind of stuck with it, but I feel like as a good GM, when you know it's not working, you just let it go. You just cut it. You cut the weight and keep moving because like if you think about it back in 2014, like we cut Ryan Taylor because he got into Avante Burfict in the Cincinnati game. And that in turn made us keep Brandon Bostic, who then in turn screwed up on a special teams play. Now I'm not, Bostic has gone through a lot of drama because of that. But I'm just saying, like, Bostic had not really done anything up to it, but Ted Thompson was in love with Bostic, so he kept him.
He should have kept Ryan Taylor because Taylor was assignment sound. But yeah, so I'm bringing back old one. I'm just like I said, if it ain't working, like Josh Myers, I'm done with the Josh Myers experiment too. I'm done with it.
Is Brett Good still out there for long snapper?
Bro, he is. He retired, but I'd bring his ass back too.
Yeah, one of those two guys.
We gotta figure something out on special teams. And you're so right. I can't agree with you more to see what this preseason brings for our special teams. Man, I wouldn't even be opposed to on 3rd and longs and field goal range, just saying fuck it and sending the field goal team out there and down early, just like get the reps almost. I'm tired of the special teams not being very special. And
for real.
It's just, it goes back to the Niners game. Carlson makes that kick. It's a whole different game.
Exactly.
And so special teams, I want to see a lot of focus that in the preseason. Curious to see when does Lloyd get back? How long does Emmanuel Wilson stick around then? So that running back position could turn into a deck of shuffling cards possibly throughout the preseason and early in the season, depending on Lloyd's injury.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm stoked, man. I'm pumped for the preseason. I was almost tempted to try to fly to Denver. There's some direct flights. I don't know, man. That's a lot right now, and
you won't. I'll give you a little extra motivation. You won't do it, man. There's no way you're going out there.
Negative reinforcement.
Yeah. The thing is, he's not going to be there to witness Michael Pratt throw for 3 tutties.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Shoot.
I want to focus. I want to focus on getting my Seattle trip secured first, because that's a regular season game. It's late in the season, and so I think I want to make sure I get those tickets, because those tickets, Seattle shows out, man. I got all the respect for Seattle's fans, because especially late in the season, Wisconsin, we get that bitter cold, but I'm telling you, man, there's something about it when it's like 20 degrees and it's pouring rain, and they still have a full house. It's pretty special there in Seattle, and I think that's one of the best non-divisional rivals is that Packers Seahawks matchup. So being down there this year on Sunday Night Football, that is goal number 1. And plus, I don't know, man, I'm just enjoying the summer. In the last 2 months, I took a trip to Phoenix, to Wisconsin, and to San Diego. I kind of feel like I'm done maybe flying around for a bit, and it's preseason. I think I can just sit back and enjoy the preseason at home. I don't have to put out the extra money to go see a preseason game. Why not put that money into a better ticket down in Seattle?
Yeah, or if anything, save that for the home playoff game this season or next year, 25.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the playoffs. The playoffs are so far away. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Let's talk predictions here for the season. Whether it's like predictions maybe you have for certain players, or win-loss for teams, or what anything you want to predict for this Packers team. Jordan, I'll start off with you.
Yeah, there was another content creator out there that puts out a ton of Packer post that I did a little collab on with the schedule prediction. I put us at 11-6 this year. So, last year I probably said about 7-8 wins. So they exceeded those expectations. I probably come in on a little bit more of like the pessimistic, realistic side of it. Mm-hmm. I know there will be a pretty challenging part of the schedule. I was just looking at it on my fridge here the other day, but there's like 4 games in a row there at the last part of the schedule that are all like 7:00 start times. And I think that's kind of going to throw our team through a loop. We know there's some tough games in there with Thanksgiving. You got the 49ers, but 11-6 is my prediction. I'm going divisional round again. Jordan Love's going to be a Pro Bowler as long as he plays with the offense. I'm hoping for a lot of 12 personnel, get back to some black and blue. And I think we have a really successful season if Josh Jacobs can put up like 1,200 yards on the ground. We don't need to do too much. Hand the ball off to him, get the ball in front of our, playmakers, read, take the occasional deep shots with Watson. And If we can get back to running some halfback screens efficiently, like what we did with Amon Green, I think Josh Jacobs is the back to do it.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to watch Josh Jacobs this year. We just got to get that man a receiving touchdown. That's all I ask for. Get it for him as soon as possible. I don't know how he's gone this long in his career with this many touches and catches.
No, it made no sense.
Doesn't have a receiving touchdown. But they don't make running backs like him too much anymore. And I think he could lead the NFL in rushing again. And have the Packers – has that happened for the Packers before? When was the last time that happened? They have to be like Grant or Green, right? Like
Green, I think, yeah.
Yeah. But
broke his thumb. No.
Yeah, you got to hand the ball off a lot when you have a broken thumb. But I'm excited for Jacobs. What about you, Amr? Any predictions you're putting out there, or any thoughts into this season?
I think I'm gonna when I did my team predictions, I did like 14-3. I'm just Mr. Optimistic. Like I'm just stupid. Okay, like that's what I'm going with. 14-3. I think that Jordan will be an MVP candidate. I think that we will see a Defensive Player of the Year with Rashawn Gary, and I feel like we may have even a rookie Defensive Player of the Year in either Edgerrin Cooper or Javon Bullard. Like I really feel like we're gonna see some accolades for this team that we weren't really expecting to kind of happen, and the schedule lines up nicely. I feel like the schedule for what we had last year and what we have this year. I mean, for us to do, and I think our team's gonna be even younger this year than it was last year. Last year was like a 24-year-old average. I think this year's going to be like 23.6. So it's still going to be the youngest NFL team, which is good because with that youth, I always feel like the team that was there last year went through so much adversity. They know that they can come out from under it, right? And then this year, the new talent, that all those 13, 14 players that we drafted, they're not going to know any better. Some of them come from winning programs. So they're going to be like, man, like they're going to expect that going in. And the other ones that don't, they're not going to know, like, when they're down 2 touchdowns that, for some teams, they mail it in. These guys are going to be ignorant in a good way where it's like, hey, we got a shot because we were down 2 touchdowns last year in a couple games. We still came back, right? And a lot of like one-score games that went one way or another for us. I think it was about 8 games that went that way last year. I'm just really looking forward to seeing just the team as a whole, like, just gel, because they did that last year. And if they can kind of build upon that relationship building this year, I just think the sky's the limit. What about you, Bernie? What are you looking at?
But I think this offense is going to be hot, and it might take a few weeks, but, it took us 10 weeks last year to really get on a roll or whatever, when it was that Love just got on his hot streak. Yep. He'll get there sooner this year. I think there'll be a little bit of a slow start. I think that's Green Bay tradition for quarterbacks, is to take the first few games off or something. And then I also think the defense. So the Packers offense will be a top 10 offense, hands down, almost throughout the whole season. I think it lies within the defense. I think we're going to see it kind of go up and down as everyone's learning this, the schemes, the system. And I think that, Halfleet's finding his footing as well. I think the defense, though, after the bye week in week 10, I think they're like a top 5 defense. After that, I think they've figured it out. The youngsters know what they're doing. They're playing instinctual. They're just following Halfleet's direction. I think we're going to take, I'd like to say, I know Amr and I one time we broke down the schedule, and I was thinking 14-3. We went through there, and it was like the Eagles, the Niners, and I think one of the Lions were our 3 losses. But I think there's going to be one trap game in there too. Yeah. And the trap game I'll throw out there is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars game. We're gonna beat the Texans in an instant classic, and everyone's gonna be talking Packers, Texans. Is this the Super Bowl preview? And then we're just gonna go lay a big fat turd down in Florida. And we're gonna be like, what is going on? Like, we look like a Super Bowl contender, in last week 7, I think that Texans game is, and then we're going to go lose that game on the road to T-Law in Jacksonville. And as Packers fans do, we'll freak out, but Packers will bounce back. And the cool thing is then they will make the playoffs, and the road to the Super Bowl will be beating the teams that beat them in the regular season. Whether they get to the Super Bowl, I do not know. I think we'll at least make the NFC Championship this year. We'll take one more step forward for certain. But I think year 2 with Hafley's defense, I think that's the optimal time, like you said, Jordan, to make that Super Bowl run. This year, though, I think the Super Bowl window is open. I do not I'm not saying it won't happen this year, but if I had to pick one year in the next handful of years, it would be the following year, next year. But this year, man, I'm feeling really good about what we can accomplish.
Can we go ahead and stamp it right now that the Packers will have more than, 8 or 9 interceptions last season? Like, is that go ahead and guaranteed prediction? Is that we're getting to double digits?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. They had what? Maybe 2 interceptions. They had something really crazy. It was not 2, that's not right. But it was less than 10 for sure. And it was terrible. No, this defense is you're going to have turnovers. I mean, they're talking about the way they're raking at the ball. They're punching the ball out. They're getting their hands on balls or almost getting their hands on balls. Quay Walker had that amazing diving interception. I don't know, man. I'm just Jeff Hafley, he has made me a believer, and I cannot wait to see what happens.
All right. Well, man, you know me, Elmer. This is always the time that I deliver my line. If I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We've been going at it for an hour here, but as always, I always like to give everyone a chance for the last words, whether you want to give people a shout out, one more quick topic that you want to bring up, or just let the listeners know where they can find you. So, Jordan, last words for Coast to Coast Packers on the Rocks.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a true Packers podcast and in Green Bay, Wisconsin without a little bit of Mother Nature going on. And as we speak, we do have some precipitation falling down on us, a little rainfall, not quite like the monsoon Tuesday practice, but that could be the cue right there. And as Brett Favre said, when he returned back for that Thanksgiving game in 2016, it wouldn't be Packer football without some rain. So all I'll say is really, I truly appreciate you guys, have me on, continue to, spread the love. I mean, that's kind of the quote unquote phrase with Jay Love now being our franchise for the next few years. Yep. I mean, my only real question would be to you guys, what week are you guys making out to a game here in Green Bay? And would love to, rub elbows with you and, cheers a drink in person.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know if I'll make it for a game to Lambeau this year because I'm putting that towards the draft visit. So this spring is when I plan on making it to Green Bay for the draft. And I'm just, being 90 miles north of Seattle, I'm just going to take that. That's my game for the year is Packers, Seahawks, and Seattle. But next spring I'll be in Green Bay for the draft. Definitely will have to hang out, Jordan, and you'll definitely have to come back on Coast to Coast as well sometime this season so we can kind of revisit some of the things we've talked about and some of the things we predicted. So thanks, Jordan. And I want to kick it to you, though, too, Armor. Everyone's get their chance for their last words.
Oh, man, just Jordan, thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. I always catch your stuff on Instagram, and it's always a good time, man. I'm looking forward to getting more content with you. Just let everybody know, we're going to have Ryan Grant, former Green Bay Packer running back, on the show tomorrow. And so that's going to be really cool. We're looking forward to talk to him about just the state of the Packers running game, what he saw with what we had last year and what we expect to see this year. And also his thoughts on LaFleur, because he did he was coached by LaFleur when he was in Washington. And so just kind of getting his thoughts on the offense, on LaFleur, and just our running backs. And so it'll be a real good show tomorrow. But yeah, man, just training camp is here. We got actual NFL football this week. I feel like things are starting to move in motion in the right way. I can't wait. Fantasy football drafts are starting, and I might get I think 8 leagues. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, man, just can't wait, man. Bernie, what you got?
Man, I just want to say thanks again to Jordan for joining us, man. I love your content that you put on Instagram. It's clean, it's neat, it's precise, it's concise. I love it. keep doing your thing, man. And we're gonna definitely have you come back to Game On Wisconsin. It's been a pleasure. I love your optimism as well for the Packers. And I'm just stoked. Like you said, man, like training camp started, preseason starts this week. It is officially here. And it was 40 days to Brazil, right? That's where we're at right now. What a crazy way to kick off a season. I'm absolutely stoked. But we're Coast to Coast Packers. We'll be back tomorrow night with Ryan Grant. And, as we always say on this show, go Pack, go.
Go Pack,
go.
go.